My name is Chris Fleck. I just wanted to welcome you to Thrive, and our keynote speaker for today's Thrive event is Matt Fore. Matt lives in Johnson City, Tennessee. He's married to his wife, Joanne, has 4 daughters. Is that correct, Matt?
It's 3 or 4. We're not sure because I'm on the road a lot.
Matt is a hilarious speaker, a writer, a lecturer. Matt has been a keynote speaker to corporations such as TIAA-CREF and Aflac, to name a few, in addition to performing several national television shows such as Odyssey, TNN, TBN, and Fox Sports, just to name a few. In addition, Matt is a small business coach equipping entrepreneurs to, quote unquote, stand out in their communication to attract and serve clients who actually buy. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, clients that actually buy. Those are our favorite ones. We never know for sure who those are, do we? But yeah, I speak all over the country. You know, I did a seminar, actually a conference, on what I'm going to talk about today a few years ago, and I spoke for 12 hours on this.
Wow.
And so I know we don't have 12 hours. So what I've done for today, I've condensed it to 6 hours. I hope that's going to be all right. Is that okay, Chris? I think I'm getting a thumbs up from Chris.
I think you got 30 minutes, man.
30 minutes. Okay. I'm going to have to do some serious condensing, but that's all right. But I am used to being on stage and getting the applause and the laughter and all that. It's a little different being virtual. And so I can't hear you guys as much. Yes, thank you, David. If I do say something that you think is funny, it would be helpful to me if you could just raise your hand. That'll be nice. And then if you want to applaud, you know, do that. And that probably does sound weird, but my doctor says it's normal. He just wants me to stay on the medication. But we're going to go back to a simpler time for a minute. So I'm going to ask you to use your imagination here. When I was a kid, my grandfather used to take me and my brother to the country store. And they lived in Littleton, North Carolina. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's no grocery stores around. Of course, that was way before Walmart. And the country store had everything because you couldn't get things anywhere else. So you could get a snack and a drink, but you could also get chicken wire. And you could get a hammer. And if you had a stomach ache, they had a remedy for that. And you could get roofing supplies. You could also buy a new dress. So they had it all because they had to serve all these people in all these different ways. And also there was a lady there that ran the country store, and her name was Marge. Now, I don't know why this is, but these country stores were all over the country. And the lady that ran it in all the stores was always Marge. And you knew where Marge was. You knew where she came from. And everybody loved her. She knew everybody within 50 miles. And she actually lived at the store because the store was a house. So the upper floor was where she lived, her and her husband, Frank. And then the store was downstairs. And so people just trusted Marge. And they really loved Marge. And Marge had one method of selling her products. And it always worked. It was 100% effective. So if you have a pen or a pencil or something and you want to write this down, there are not many methods of selling that you could say work 100% of the time. This always worked. What Marge did was she waited at the store for you to come by and buy something. And that worked. Now, there were some people that got more aggressive, and they would go door to door, and they would sell you a vacuum cleaner, a brush, or some pots and pans. And my grandmother, actually, her name was Maki. And Maki was, she was a very large woman. My grandmother, I'll just tell you, she was a very large woman. And my grandfather, Pa, he was thin. So you have this large woman with a thin man, and when they stood side by side, they looked like the number 10. So, and if any of y'all thought that was funny, if you could Okay, thank you very much. It's good to have relatives at the event, just to keep things moving along. But my grandmother Maki was very particular about her house. She kept it clean, immaculate. And she had some little ladies over for a tea party one day, and a man knocked on the door to sell her a vacuum cleaner. Now, I'm not making this story up. He came in with the vacuum cleaner and he cleaned a little area on the carpet and then opened the vacuum cleaner and took the bag out to show her all the nasty stuff in that bag, to show her how dirty her carpet was. And that was not a good thing to do in front of all my grandmother's little friends. And she did something to that salesman. We don't know what it was, but she got 10 years of hard time. That we do know. I want to show you guys something, just a few little slides with you when we talk about standing out. They had easy methods. They would either wait for you to come by or they would go knock on your door. Things have gotten a little bit more complicated. I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed this. And today we have all these methods: email, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook groups, YouTube, Vimeo, Pinterest, text, private messaging, LinkedIn, apps, and that's just a few of them, actually. There are many different kinds of apps that people have today that they can use. And also, it's kind of like that everybody is a sea of penguins, because we're all making a lot of noise. Everybody's screaming and yelling, and they're just saying, look at me, look at me, look at me. We've got all these tools now: Google Drive, Google Docs, Voxer, Marco Polo, Zoom, which we're on, GoToMeeting, Dropbox. These are just a few. So in a way, it's easier than ever to get our message out. But in a way, it's harder than ever to be heard. That's kind of ironic. So we're sort of like these penguins where everybody's screaming, look at me, look at me, look at me. How can we actually stand out and be heard? And I'm going to share with you today a few ideas about this. Now, we could go on and on about it, but I'm going to share a few ideas that I believe will be helpful to you, and you can actually apply these in your business today. First of all, that's Marge. She's the lady that ran the country store, and that's my grandma when she was in jail. My grandfather Pa, when my brother and I were much younger, said that the easiest way to catch a bird is to put salt on his tail. So there we were, out there in the backyard with salt shakers, running around trying to catch a bird. My grandfather thought that was so funny. And it probably was. It never worked. And I feel silly about that now, when I look back on it. But I mean, the things you do when you're 16, it was just, it was an awkward day and kind of an awkward time. I want to share a few things with you. I have a friend, I know a guy who hired a cable company to come over and install a new product. And the guy was supposed to be there at 10 o'clock, and he showed up at 10:30. And this guy, we'll call him Owen, so you won't know his real name is Andy. So Owen said, why are you late? He said, well, I was in some traffic. I got stuck in traffic. And he said, well, you have a phone on your belt. Why didn't you call me? And the guy said, well, it's just 15 minutes. I didn't think that would matter. And this guy said, no, it matters. He said, because if this is the way that that I get treated when you're selling me something, what's it going to be like when I have a problem? And we live in a culture today where people don't do what they say they're going to do. I mean, I see it all the time. When somebody says, hey, I'll find out and I'll email you next week. No, they won't. And I already know they won't. I mean, when I perform at places, they'll say, what do you need? And I'll say, I need 2 6-foot tables and 5 chairs on the stage. And they say, I'll make sure you have it. I show up, it's not there. But you know what? I already knew it wasn't going to be there. If someone said to you years ago, I'll come by your house and help you paint the porch on Saturday, if they didn't show up, they would call you. And they would say, man, I'm so sorry, I got in a wreck or whatever. But we live in a culture now where people don't do what they say they're going to do, and there's no apology for it. And you know what's worse than that? Nobody expects one. Because not only do you not do it, but you don't apologize, and nobody thought you needed to apologize because we're just in that culture. Now, this might just be me, but if you agree with that, or if you can relate to that, I've got a chat box here. Would you type amen, type amen, or type yes in the chat box? Is that not the culture that we're in? This is really bad news in a way. But in a way, it's actually very good news for us, because if we live in a culture where the vast majority of people don't do what they say they're going to do, one of the easy ways we stand out is to do exactly what we say we're going to do. I mean, I tell people I'll call you at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, and at 9 o'clock, straight up, I call and say, hey, Ted, 9 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm calling you. And you know what? They're not there because they didn't think about it, right? But I did it, and it makes an impression on people when you do what you say you're going to do. Man, that's an easy way to stand out. I had a coach that told me, he said, it's like when you do what you say you're going to do, it's like winning the gold medal because nobody else showed up. And if you think about it, you know, it's really good to analyze in your mind and say, in my business, do I do this? Have I gone the way of the culture? Or are we standing out? Like, do we really do what we say we're going to do? If you're in a business and you tell people you've got appointments, I'll be at your house at 7. Do you show up at 7? Do you show up at 7:15? Does it matter to you? Do you call people back? Do you email people back? We got to live in a culture. We got to be different than everybody else. I don't know how many times, and maybe you can relate to this, but you go to a website and you can't find an email, you can't find a phone number. I mean, how often does this happen? Or if they do have a phone number, it's down in the 0.05 font down at the bottom, right? And you call the phone number and you get into a voicemail maze, and you say, I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to go and I'm going to email them. But there's no email address either. So what you have to do is resort to the info at box. No, I'm not against the info at box. But it's kind of my pet peeve, because the info at box is saying to people, you can email me, but I can't tell you who you're going to email. You don't know when it's going to get there. You just have no idea. It's kind of like saying you know what's funny? Because there's always a buy box, but there's plenty of places to buy, but there's almost nowhere to contact somebody. And so one way that we stand out is to have a face. Every business needs a face. You're saying, I'm the person that you need to talk to. I'm in charge. Because people, that's what they're saying when they come to your business. In whatever method you invite them, they're saying, who's in charge here? Who do I contact if there's a problem? Now, maybe you have an info app box and it always goes to Mary. Well, what you can do is that you get a picture of Mary. Maybe Mary's your assistant. And you get a picture of her and you put her right there on your website, and it says, hi, I'm Mary. I'll answer your questions. And you've got an email address, mary@abccompany.com. And it makes people feel like somebody is there that cares. I'm going to show you guys if I can make this work, and I'm almost positive I can. I actually work with a guy. And we do what we call funny short films. And I want to see if I can find this, and I believe you're going to hear it. This is about a 3-minute video that I'm going to share with you of what it might be like to have a business if we treated people in real life the way people get treated when they go online. Now let's give this a click. And Chris, I can see you. When this plays, I want you to give me a thumbs up if you hear the sound, okay? You hear it?
Hi, can I get 2 dozen chocolate and a dozen strawberry with sprinkles, please? You have sprinkles, right? Hello? Are you working right now? I want to get some cupcakes.
Excuse me. Do you have a password?
No, I don't have a password.
He doesn't have a password.
Well, he has to have a password.
You have to have a password. You can write it here.
I don't know if this is right, but you could try it.
He didn't know if this is going to be right, but you can try.
No.
No, that's not the password. Do you have a user or
No.
do you have any ID?
I don't think I have.
What's your mother's maiden name?
Uh,
You don't look like a Don. You look like a David. What's your shoe size? Are you a robot? Do you have an account?
No, I don't have an account.
He doesn't have an account.
Well, he has to have an account.
You have to have an account. Would you like to open an account?
Okay, yes, sure.
Okay. What's your password?
I don't have a password. Look, I just want to buy some cupcakes. Is there somebody I can talk to or a phone number?
Is there a phone number?
Does he see a phone number?
Do you see a phone number? There's no phone number. And nobody's here.
Somebody has to be here. There's always somebody here.
Is anybody here?
Nobody's here.
She said nobody's here.
You know what? How about you just give me a name and email address and I will contact somebody directly.
Well, that's a good idea. Do you have a name?
Info.
Info.
Info?
Info at.
Info. I'm not emailing somebody named info at, but I'm going to tell your owner about all the ridiculous things you guys are doing here today.
Well, that'll work. You'll have to do that in 40 characters or less.
Okay, I could do that for you.
Okay. Would you like to send it now?
Yes, I'd like to send it now.
What's your password?
I don't have a password.
He doesn't have a password.
He has to have a password.
You have to have a password.
You know what? How's that for a password?
How's that for a password? I'm afraid someone has selected this password.
I'm out of here, and I'm not coming back.
See ya. You'll be back.
All right. Does that seem familiar to anybody at all? Can I get a hand? Does anybody? I mean, isn't that just the way it is? I mean, we're saying to people, coming by, and then when they get there, we're saying we don't really care about you. We just want your money. I just wrote an article for entrepreneur.com. It just hit last Sunday, and it's called 4 Ways High-Tech Communication May Be Hurting Your Business. And in that article, I refer to a Forbes article who did an investigation and found that there's $75 billion lost every year because people get frustrated with businesses and they leave. And do you know what the top 2 reasons are that people leave? Number 1, they don't feel appreciated. And number 2, they can't reach a live person. So whether you're a small business or a large business, we have to be accessible to people in some way, that they feel appreciated and that they feel like, and that they know that there is somebody that they can talk to. Now, I've had a lot of coaches, and I've done a lot of television and been on film a lot, so I'm not new to being in front of a camera. But when this coach told me that I needed to go live, I was like, I'm a little nervous about that, because going live, say on Facebook, going live on Facebook, what if you mess up? But I did it anyway. You have to step out of your comfort sometimes. And one of the very first Facebook lives that I did, I was sideways like this. Hello, everybody. That's the way my Facebook live was. But you know what? I got used to it. And I just started doing Facebook lives. And people, what happens is they get used to you. They start looking for you, especially if you're entertaining, if you're kind of engaging. They want to see it, and then they share it. And you create kind of a fan base with your social media, with your Facebook lives. Now, companies want to hide behind websites and logos and mottos and memes that they put up and all kinds of things, but it's like, I don't want to be out in front. You need to get out in front, have a face, go live, and be animated. Now, you might say, well, we really don't have the kind of company that's conducive to that sort of thing. Let me pick a company that you might think would not be conducive to going live. Let's say you have a restaurant. You know what I would do if I had a restaurant? I would have that camera out like 3 or 4 times a week. And I would say, All right, we got Joe over here. He's making a homemade chili. This is my grandmother's recipe. He only does this on Wednesdays. It only lasts. We have it Wednesday and Thursday, but always by Thursday afternoon, it's gone. So you better get here, right? If I was a real estate agent, isn't that good, Chris? If I was a real estate agent, I would say, I just listed this house. It's absolutely beautiful. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It's got a great backyard. And this was only lived in by one little old lady, and she only drove it to church once a week. And the rest of the time, it stayed right here on the corner. And I would talk, if I had a dress shop, if I had a clothing store, I would say, we just got these 3 dresses in. We ordered 12, but we only got 3 because everybody wants them. And you just become known out there. You're animated, and people see it and they share it, and you have a link in there, and it drives them right to your site or to your video or to your product. And you just got to get out there, and you got to be animated. You know, we talk about communicating with people and how we get drowned out. And we do. We get drowned out because people don't want to answer calls. They delete your emails. They don't read your emails. And, you know, they go get their mail, right? And they're looking at it, and they're like, that's junk. That's junk. That's junk. That's a bill. That's junk. Something from Bob Wilbanks. I don't want that. Another bill, you know, all these things. They're just throwing them out. What if there was a method? If I told you there's a way that you can stand out above everybody, and if you could have their attention for like 20 seconds to say one important thing to them, would anybody be interested in knowing what that is? Just by some hands. All right, I'm seeing the hands. That's good. Darla, I'm going to have to assume that you raised your hand. Now, this is a new and innovative way of making sure that somebody gets your message, almost guaranteed, and I'll explain it because it'll look strange to you. This is called a thank you card. Now, let me explain how this works. Now, in the camera, it's going to be backwards, but basically, it is an empty card. And what you do is you say, hey, Bob, thanks so much for taking a moment yesterday to talk to me about da-da-da-da-da, letting me show you these houses. Thank you for allowing me to do this for you. And you drop it in the mail. You know what? When they check the mail, they go junk, 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 Bill, Bob Wilbanks, junk. And then they see this. And they go, wait, somebody wrote me a hand-addressed thing. It's hand-addressed. There's a real stamp on it. It can't be stamped from your business. And it can't have any kind of marketing in it, really. It's just about saying, hey, thank you, and whatever I can do for you. Did you know people have these, and they keep them, and they put them up on their mantle and their shelf, and they look at them, and they remember? Who else sends them a thank you card? There's a guy named Larry Wingate who's a speaker, and he teaches all these conferences to people about how to market and how to sell whatever it is that they sell. And he's taught hundreds and probably thousands of people. And he said, you know, and all of the conferences that I've taught, there's not been a single student that has ever sat down and wrote a thank you card to me and mailed it to me in the mail. Thank you cards need to be part of your business to stand out. You're trying to get through electronically, and that's great. We got to do that. But then you do something nobody else does, and all of a sudden, you've got your client's attention for just a minute. I tell you what, there was a lady named Lorena Cobb. She was a courier. And as a courier, you go pick up a package and you take it somewhere. And she had a customer that had another courier. And he got most of the business. Lorena got some of the business, and she wanted more of it. And she asked a coach, she said, what do I do? And he said, well, what does your customer like? And she said, well, he likes, he's a cook. The coach said, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to buy a cookbook and find a recipe in there and cook the recipe, find the one you like, and then circle it. And the next time he calls you for service, I want you to give him that cookbook. And that's what she did. She said, I know you like to cook. I got a cookbook. And this is my favorite recipe. And did you know she gave that to him? And he booked her, he hired her over and over and over again because of that. You know how much that cookbook cost? $10. Because she did something different. She stood out above everybody else. I got papers right here, and I've got story after story after story about that to tell you, and I just don't have time. But I can see we're going to run out of time, and I won't have a chance to do my 45-minute sermon, which I'm going to do at the very end. But I worked at a jewelry store many years ago called Shelley's Jewelry, and people would come by, and they'd say, I got this watch, and it doesn't work. And Shelley's just had a heart for people. And they'd say, let me take that and put a battery in it for you. And they'd bring it back to them. And the people would say, what do I owe you? You don't owe me anything. Or they'd say, my bracelet's not working right. Let me see that a minute. And we'd take it back there. And maybe the clasp was sticking wrong or whatever. They'd fix it. They might even put a new one on there. Bring it back to them. What do I owe you? You don't owe me anything. Sometimes we would say, hey, you want me to polish that ring up for you? Sure. We'd take it back there, put it on. There was a polishing wheel, and you could put it in a little gizmo that vibrated and made the diamond sparkle and give it back to them, and it was like new money. And they would say, what did you do? That's beautiful. What do I owe you? And Shelley's just had this heart for people. And they'd say, you don't owe me anything. But you know what? At Valentine's and Christmas and birthdays and weddings, you know where people went? They were at Shelley's Jewelry. They had a sale once a year. It was called Ad Pack. And we had to cover the windows and the doors with brown paper because people were trying to look in to see what was going on. And it was like a rock concert. When they opened that door, I mean, it was like Elvis was performing. There were other jewelry stores in town, but they may as well have closed that day because everybody was at Shelley's. They had a heart of giving and of blessing people. And they didn't do it just because people would come back, but they just did it. They just loved people and they stood out. Let me just recap here. Do what you say you're going to do. Have a face to your business. Be accessible. Be animated. Be thankful. And give people bonuses. Boy, there's a lot more I could say. But you know where this really comes from? It comes from Philippians 2:3, and this is what it says, and I've got it written down. With humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves. You know, the Bible wasn't written as a marketing tool, and yet the Bible is the greatest marketing tool ever. That we just love people and we serve people, and as we serve people, they just want to come back. You know, it's kind of a law that when you give, people just want to give back. It's just the way it is. You know, Jesus wasn't a marketer, and yet what did he do? He attracted people. He didn't chase people like my grandfather said. When you chase people, they run away. But you attract people when you stand out and you are different than everybody else. I want to show you something here. I'm going to share the screen just a second. This is a little program that I've written that I do want to share with you very, very quickly here. And this is where some of this stuff came from. Actually, there's way, way, way more here than you would find than I've talked to you about. But this is called Stand Out, Communicate, Win. It's a little course. There are 11 videos. There are 9 PDFs. There are 3 templates that you can use. And I'm just going to do something here. I'm going to pop this over here into the chat box just so that you will be able to find that. And there it is. And I believe it'll be a benefit to you, not only to learn, but also to share with your staff, with your salespeople, with whoever that you work with, to teach and to make it a principle for us to stand out. Now, I'm going to share this really quickly in closing. Have I got time, Chris, just for 5 minutes?
Let's do it.
5 minutes. We'll do it. I'll make it 3 minutes. I go live every Sunday morning on Facebook with a devotional. And there's a scripture, and it's kind of things that you might want to expect on a Sunday morning devotional. But about a month ago, I did one about standing up to evil. And I talked about the curriculum going into elementary schools, which is absolutely unacceptable. And I posted that, and you know what? Facebook didn't like it. And after that, they started throttling me down. And the next week, I did a Facebook Live devotional about how we are part of the kingdom of God. And they rejected it. There was nothing political about it, but they rejected my devotional because I guess my stance against evil got their attention. They said, oh, we can't have this guy doing that. So they rejected it. And ever since then, they've throttled me way down. So here's what I want to tell you. You don't own your social media, but you do own your email list. You own your website and your email list. And we really got to learn, and maybe I'll come back and do a seminar or something on this, but we got to learn how to get people from social media to the assets that we own so that we can communicate with them. That's just a super, super important thing. Doesn't mean they leave here, but it means that you've got to move them over because social media can change their algorithms. They can throttle you down. They can say, we don't like your message. You know, and your message is not political. You're just a Christian and you love the Lord and you say something like that and they're like, we don't like these people. You got to move people over and you do it with an opt-in, and there's just a lot to talk about, but we won't do it now. But I just want to say that you've got to move people over. And I got a whole thing about subject lines and how you get subject lines that stand out, but we're going to run out of time if we do that. All right, so I put the I put the link to the little course there. And also, let me put this here. It's Matt at mattfore.com. And I'll put that in there. You can email me and just say, hey, I want to know more about the course, or I want to know about you, or just whatever. And so I just put that in there as well, Matt at mattfore.com, and I'll get right back with you.